Hello, BlizzCon. My name is Chris Zurhead. I'm the lead class designer on World of Warcraft, and I'm going to talk to you today about some of our class design changes for Warlords of Draenor. But before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about what were our goals in making our class design changes. And the first thing we wanted to do is take a look at our classes. And we've added a ton of abilities over the years. We made all kinds of changes to talents and how classes work. Take a hard look at what's fun and what's not fun, and try to clean up some of the stuff that wasn't. Some of the abilities we've added over the years were amazing and awesome, and others were, frankly, duds. And clean things up and make the classes a lot more fun. We also want to take a look at the balance of our raids and dungeons and their challenges versus how hard it is to play our classes. And over the years, our encounters have gotten more complex and more interesting, and our classes got more complex and more interesting at the same time, and to some extent it got a little bit overwhelming, and we want to strike a better balance between the complexity of those two things. We took a hard look at PvP crowd control. Crowd control's got completely out of control in Mists of Pandaria, particularly due to the new talent tree. You're in a battleground, you're getting stunned, you're getting mez, you're getting confused, you're getting hexed, you're getting stunned again. You can't do what you want. It says, you can't do that right now in the middle of your screen in big red text. You take your hands off the keyboard, and you're not having a good time. And we also wanted to take a look at the frantic pace of healing in our game. During Mists of Pandaria, healing got very, very reactionary. People are getting knocked down and nearly dead, and then back up to full, and knocked down and dead, and back to full. And this pace is super fast, and it's very punishing. If you're just a little bit too slow, your party dies. Everyone blames the healer. The healer doesn't have a good time. New people don't want to try being a healer. Everyone has less fun. We also wanted to take a hard look at the numbers in our game. Numbers have gotten completely out of control. They got bigger and bigger with each expansion. There's digits spewing all over your screen, this undigestible torrent of numbers. We took a hard look at that and tried to find ways to bring the number of numbers down and the size of the numbers down. So, given those goals, what changes did we make? First, we undertook the item squish I was just referring to. We took all that item inflation we had over the years and squished it all down flat, got the numbers in the game a lot smaller. And a lot of people were worried about, well, is my character going to be as good as he was before? Can I still kill the monsters I could kill before? And we made a big effort to make sure your character is about as powerful as they were before. You can take on the same kind of challenges, and in particular, if you want to go back and solo those old raids and dungeons, you want to collect the mounts and pets and achievements and all that stuff, you can still do that. We put in special systems to support still doing that. We undertook a big project of class ability pruning I was referring to earlier. As I said, over the years, we added a lot of abilities to World of Warcraft. Some were fun, some weren't. We took a hard look at every single one of them and said, does this class, does this spec need this ability? Is it fun? Does it fulfill a fantasy? In a lot of cases, we took buttons away in an effort to make the game more fun. We reduced the number of crowd controls in the game, particularly new stuff we introduced in Mists of Pandaria, but we were very careful on this. There's signature abilities like polymorph and sap. Those need to stay. Those are things you're used to having. They're part of the identity of your character. It's stuff like blinding light and paralytic poison. These new CCs that are very short duration and mostly PvP oriented are what we took out of the game. We also made a lot of improvements to healing gameplay. We wanted to slow down that pace of healing, give it a little more time to think about what you're doing. I'll talk about that a little more later in this presentation. But first, a lot of people look at me on this class ability pruning like I'm the Grinch, come to take away their Christmas toys, and like the little gnome, like, Grinch, why are you taking my abilities? Why? Well, perhaps my shoes are too tight. Perhaps my heart is two sizes too small. Or maybe, just maybe, we think taking some of these abilities away will make the game a lot more fun. So, figuring that out, what makes abilities fun? Abilities that have a strong fantasy are fun. Summoning a demon to serve as your minion and strike down your enemies, that's fun. Abilities with an awesome visual or sound are fun. So turning your enemy bat into a sheep is fun. Abilities with a cool gameplay effect are fun. So death gripping your opponent, cutting them down with your weapons, that's fun. Abilities that are powerful. Using Divine Shield to become invulnerable, so you can live through a fight where you otherwise would have died, heal yourself back to full, and keep on fighting. That's fun. Abilities that are interactive, where you can work with your friends to help them out, such as Power Word Shield on your team members to keep them alive. Those are fun. And abilities with a clear purpose. You're a rogue, you need to get out of that fire right now. Sprint is a perfect button for that purpose. So what makes abilities not fun? What are the things that we should get rid of in World of Warcraft? First of all, abilities that are redundant are not fun. You're a mage, you got Frostbolt, you got Frostfire Bolt. Why do you need both of those buttons? They both cast time spells, they both do damage, they both snare the target. Well, for Frost Mage, maybe there's some interesting mechanics there, but Fire Mage doesn't have Frostbolt anymore, and Arcane Mages have neither. They didn't need them. Abilities with an inconsistent fantasy are not fun. Inquisition is probably one of the most unpopular abilities I can think of in World of Warcraft for Retribution Paladins. Right? The fantasy of a Ret Paladin is I wade into combat and I strike down my foes with that big giant hammer, not, well, I earn some holy power and then I put this buff on myself and then I can fight a little better for a while. It's just not fun. It doesn't fit the fantasy. It's not cool. Abilities that are too situational are not fun. Nourish, right? You got this guy's giant health bar, 238,000 health. Nourish heals 19,000 health, right? Why do you push Nourish? Well, I mean, if I'm really injured, I want to do a Nature Swiftness Healing Touch, or maybe I put Rejuves out there. When do you use Nourish? Well, I guess I got nothing better to push. I'll push this one, right? It's not a fun button. It's gone. Abilities that have been balanced to mediocrity are not fun. The best example of this in our game is Mortal Strike. Back in 2004 WoW, Mortal Strike was a fearsome ability. When a warrior came at you with his big giant Arcanite Reaper and Mortal Strike, you're afraid he's going to kill you. He's going to cut you in half with a single blow. If you're near death, you're dead. Over the years, we added more abilities, we balanced things out, we made things more fair, and Mortal Strike became what I would call a wet noodle button. You push it, but his health doesn't really move that far anymore. We take a Mortal Strike back to its old glory. Abilities with a lack of feedback are not fun. So the Deathknight in this image just used Blood Strike. Can you tell he did it? Health bar barely moved. There's not a great animation. There's not a great visual. Not a great fantasy. It's gone. Abilities that are unreliable are not fun. Anybody who's played a Feral Druid has seen these 3 error messages on screen. You can't do that right now. You must be behind your target. You're facing the wrong way. Wait, I'm behind and facing the wrong way? How is that possible? Right? So Shred no longer has a positional requirement. Mangle's no longer part of the cat rotation. It simplified it out and made those buttons reliable. And then abilities that are too complicated are not fun. In Mists of Pandaria, we introduced this new Druid ability, Symbiosis. It has a great fantasy to it. I'm going to give you one of my abilities. You're going to get one of my abilities. It's going to be cool and synergetic, and it fits the whole kit of a Druid. Reality is, the raid leader says, okay, for this encounter, let me look it up here. This chart says we need this ability, so you got to cast it on this guy. You don't get to have the fun with the ability. You're spending less time looking at spreadsheets and charts about what's the best way to beat the encounter. Great fantasy, too complicated, not fun. Symbiosis is gone. So to illustrate this problem of too many buttons, I'm going to take you through the history of the Restoration Druid, how many buttons they had back in the beginning, back in 2004, and what happened over the course of all these expansions as we kept adding more and adding more and adding more. So back in 2004, they had 21 core abilities if you were in a party or raid that you would use to keep your party members alive or get out of trouble or maybe do a little bit of damage, some CC maybe. You had another 18 abilities for a total of 39. The 18 other abilities were bear form, cat form abilities. But really, you just put those on the bear form and cat form bars, and you didn't have to worry about them. Right? You could ignore them most of the time. They didn't matter too much. But then the patches started. By the time we got to patch 1.12, we were already up to 46 buttons. So already probably too many to really understand and learn these buttons completely. We gave every Druid Hurricane, you got Insect Swarm and Swiftmend and Gift of the Wild, all these new buttons being added. Then as you go into Burning Crusade, everybody gets new buttons as they level up. Some things are really cool. Flight Form is amazing. Every Druid loves Flight Form, right? But did it really add a lot to get Maim and Lacerate? I don't know. Wrath Lich King, another 6 abilities, come onto the Restoration Druid. You got Tree of Life form now. You got another 5 new buttons, right? It's getting more and more things that you have to keep track of. Where do you put all those buttons in your bars? I don't know. There's just too much stuff. And around this time, we started to get some really worrisome feedback. We had people who, yeah, they played early in Burning Crusade, but they took a break. Something happened in their life that made them go away. Military service, something in the family. They came back like, I can't figure my character out. What all these buttons do? I don't know how to do it. And they can't figure out how to play the game. And all these situational buttons, like when do I use this one? When do I use that one? And they're confused. They're going to third-party websites to try to figure it out. And that's not really the game we want. We want the buttons to make sense, to have a clear purpose, for you to know what buttons are good for you and what buttons aren't, and not be so confused about how to play the game. In particular, people were very confused about the talent trees. If you think back to Wrath of Lich King, we had 71-point talent tree. You know, huge number of talent points you could spend, 71 points of talents. So we decided to simplify the talent trees for Cataclysm. Cut it down to half as many. And we're going to try to get rid of some of those situational buttons you don't really need. It's going to be better. It's going to be less complicated. How do you think we did? Cataclysm, 57 abilities. Damn. We completely failed to reduce the number of buttons we had in your bars. It got a little bit easier with the talents, so you had half as much to worry about there. But you still have all these buttons you got to figure out what to do with. Now, some of them, they're becoming cooler buttons over time, but still, too many. So as we headed into Mists of Pandaria, we were going to make some additional effort to try to simplify it. We even scrapped the entire old talent system to try to get to be less complicated. All right, you got 6 rows to pick one thing, and you can pick a passive thing instead of a button if you want. Let's assume, though, that everyone picked all the active buttons because they were better, right? So as we go into Mists of Pandaria, how did we do? Not so good. Let it go. Oh, sorry. Too far. Mists of Pandaria, still 57 buttons. Some of the really useless buttons are gone, but still more got added in. The new talent system was particularly guilty of contributing to this, because now you had all these new buttons that got put into the talent system where you could take this ability that was never available before. So going into Warlords of Draenor, we knew we had to take a hard look at this. The game has gotten too hard for a lot of people to figure out how to play. Not to say that we think we don't like the depth of the game. We like the depth of it, but you shouldn't have to read so many tooltips. You shouldn't have to go to a third-party website to figure out just the basics, how to play your character. So we took a hard look at every single ability on every single class, on every single spec, and we managed to bring it down. So in Warlords of Draenor, Restoration Druid is back down to 41 buttons. Very similar to where they were in the original shipping game, which we all loved, right? These buttons are actually even better than the original game because a lot of buttons that you didn't care about are gone, replaced with things with a cooler fantasy that are more powerful that you didn't have back in 2004. Additionally, let's say you want to take all passive talents, you can actually go all the way down to 37, which is a much more manageable place. It might still be too many, but it's way better than where we were. I'd also like to talk to you about some improvements we made to healing gameplay. So in 5.4, there were some reports that healing wasn't fun. It was very punishing, very reactive. If you made a mistake, the whole party was going to die very quickly. There's constant swings in health. I call this the health bar whiplash. You see this a lot in the raid UI. The guys are nearly dead, and the predictive healing says you can go all the way back to full in one heal. And so nearly dead, back to full, nearly dead, back to full, constantly. This whiplash meant there's no time to think about what you're doing. It's just spam those heals out as fast as you can. We also had a lot of abilities we called smart heals. These are heals that they pick the most injured people in your raid and they heal them for you. You don't have to even have them selected. So you're a druid again. You push wild growth. It just finds the 6 most injured people for you. It doesn't matter who you have targeted. It doesn't matter what's going on in the raid. It just find them. Who's having the fun there? Are you having the fun, or is the game playing itself for you? Maybe. And those two things combined together result in, well, I just pick the best smart heal that's not on cooldown right now. So now I have a healing rotation, right? What's the best button to push right now that's not on cooldown? You're not thinking about the state of the raid, you're not thinking about the situation, you're not thinking about who's injured. It's just spam out as many heals as I can as fast as I can. Win those healing meters. We also had a big problem in that mana was scaling in a problematic way. So you just got to level 90, and you went into a dungeon. How'd your mana feel? not so good, right? You're constantly running out, and you're just barely managed to hang in there on the boss encounters. At the same time, you go off and get a bunch of raid gear, and you got tons of spirit. Who cares about mana? I can cast whatever I want, whenever I want. It's never going to run out. So there's too big a gulf between the novice starting out player and the guy who's got really good gear. So he wanted to correct that problem. So, solutions to these problems. Our first solution was to double the effective health of our players. I mentioned earlier we did that item squish. We brought all the numbers of the game much smaller. After we did that, we actually went back and doubled the health on all the characters. We didn't change how much the monsters do for damage, so now the monsters essentially take twice as long to kill you, which means you have more time to think about what to do in the game before the person's dead. We changed our smart heals. They're not so smart anymore. They're kind of dumb. They pick somebody who's injured. They might be missing 1 hit point. And they heal them instead of picking the most injured people. It means you got to think a little bit about who the targets are. Now, if the whole raid is injured, that smart heal is still awesome. It's going to pick people who need healing. But if there's like part of the raid's a little bit injured and 3 other guys are nearly dead, smart heal is not going to solve your problem. So you have to think a little more about the situation you're in. We increased the base regen on all our healers. So when you first hit level 100, you're going to have a lot more regen than you're used to on a fresh level 100 character. You're going to be able to heal comfortably in the dungeons without running out. Now, you won't be able to cast your most expensive heal all the time, right? If you're nothing but flash heals and prayer of healings nonstop, you're going to run out of mana. But you have enough mana to make good decisions and not feel like you're constantly pressured and about to die. And then on top of that, we reduced the availability of spirit. We've reorganized a bit how items work. You can only find spirit on rings, cloaks, necklaces, trinkets, and weapons. Spirit doesn't exist on any other slot. It's just as powerful a stat as it was before. It's just as desirable, but you can't get as much of it, so you can't make mana trivial anymore. It's going to always be an issue all the way up to the Mythic raid game. What does this actually mean in practice for healers? So it means healing becomes more tactical and less reactive. Say you have this particular raid group. Should you just cast Prayer of Healing now? Is that going to help you? Probably not. What you really want to do is find that most injured, that paladin there, Palarina, toss a heal on her, maybe a flash heal on her because she's in trouble, or maybe just a little bit of time before the next damage, so it's just a regular heal. Even better yet, you're the priest, you should cast Binding Heal, so you heal both of you. You get a chance to make decisions. In today's raid game, this situation you have, this is a crisis, and if you don't start throwing all your heals as fast as you can, you're all going to die. In 6.0, this is a situation we have a little bit of time to think about what to do. It's going to happen more commonly, not all the time, but frequently enough. There's a slower pace. You have a chance to think about what spells to cast, instead of just casting the biggest heal you can as fast as you can. There's more decision making, as I alluded to, like what should I do here? Okay, I take care of Palarina, I take care of me. Maybe I put some renews on some of those people who are a little bit low. Maybe I put a power word shield on the tanks. I get a chance to think about who needs what as a solution to their problem. It's not just cast my AoE heals as fast as I can. And mana is sufficient to meet the needs you have and powerful enough to feel good, but not so powerful that it dwarfs everything else in the game. With that, I'm going to hand over the presentation to Matt Goss, our lead item designer, and he's going to talk to you about itemization changes in Warlords of Draenor.
Thank you, Chris. So we made a ton of itemization changes in Warlords of Draenor, probably more itemization changes than we've ever made in any expansion pack ever. So I want to kind of take all those changes and give you guys context for what we did and why we did it. And a lot of the changes you're going to see, you've probably seen before. Probably there's a lot of changes that we announced last BlizzCon. There's a lot of changes you've seen on the forums, but I just want to give you that context for each change. But first, I actually want to talk about Frank. So Frank is a level 90 monk. He's Windwalker right now. He dabbles in Mistweaver too. Actually, I think he's a Mistweaver right now. But Frank has been pretty unlucky in a raid recently. But today is his lucky day. Everybody should be excited for Frank. Today, he finally got his 4-set bonus from his helm. So everybody give Frank a round of applause. Yes. So he kills Thok, he gets his helmet, and he's super excited to go turn that token into an item. So he somehow, I'm not sure how, he convinces his raid leader that the best thing for him to do is go get his 4 set right now. Here he goes. So he's off, he's going to go back to town and get it. And wait, that's not town. That's Timeless Isle. It's okay. His hearth was set at the wrong spot. It's okay though. It's just a short flight over to town. He'll find the vendor. Okay. There's a long list of things here. There's a lot of different tokens with little green text, and he's got to find the right one. But, Frank's a smart guy. He's got it. He's figured it out. That's his piece. Now he just needs 2 gem sockets, and then he'll be back. So he's going to go quickly to Orgrimmar. It's not a big deal. He's got some gem sockets here, or some gems he's looking at. He's not really sure which ones he wants to get. So that kind of looks like that or that or that in order to fill those slots. And then I guess he might as well get his reforging in now too, because he already did the research, and looks like his raid's getting a little angry at him at this point. They're trying to summon him. And then he'll upgrade, and then he'll be back. But he doesn't have any lesser charms right now. That's a little awkward. So I think he should probably go get some lesser charms, and I think there's only one place that one goes to get lesser charms anymore. Yeah, it's frogs. Yeah, a lot of frogs had to die. So he gets his frogs killed, heads back. He's got enough coins now for the upgrade, but he's got to redo everything that he just did. All of his gems are wrong, all of his reforging's wrong. He's going to do all of it again real quick. He'll get it through. It's okay, he's on his way back, and no one's here anymore because it's taken him probably 3 hours to do all of this. So really, what is the point of all of this? Well, the first point is if you guys are, need another level 90 monk, please let me know. I'm looking for a raid. I know all the fights. No, seriously. We looked at this and we said, there's a lot of work that's required for items, and we think the game is more fun if at the time you get an item, you can immediately put it on. So we're calling this philosophy, and a lot of these changes are related to this philosophy: kill, loot, equip. Kill a boss, loot the corpse, put the item on. Yeah. So the first thing we did in Draenor is raid set tokens now directly convert into items. So if you're familiar with Timeless Isle, you right-click on the token itself, and it converts into the item of your class. We've also removed hidden expertise from the game. Yep. So these were stats that you really required a lot of precision for your character. You had to hit them exactly. If you were too low, they weren't good. If you were too high, if you had too much, then it wasn't doing you any good. So we just thought they weren't necessary. And we also removed reforging from the game. Again, we had a lot of systems that required that precision of stats. By removing reforging, you don't have to min-max every single piece of gear that you get in the game anymore. You don't have to worry about it. It'll be fine. And finally, in 6.0, we don't have any upgrades. So when you get an item, you'll actually be able to put it on. You won't have to upgrade it before it's better. And the last thing we did is we focused enchants and gems on fewer slots. So that means that when you get a piece of gear, it's less likely that you're going to have to put an enchant on it or put a gem on it. Gems in Warlords are actually bonuses, so you're not going to see an item that is worse because it has 3 gem sockets until you actually put gems into it. You'll be able to just get it right away. The enchants too, it's only ring, neck, cloak that actually gets enchants now. So again, less things to do. So here's an example. This is a set token in Warlords of Draenor. And this is it, right-click, get a cast bar, makes your item for you. So with removing reforging and changing the amount of slots for enchanting and gem sockets, you might think that we're not looking at stat customization as an important thing, but that's actually not true. We actually wanted to make it easier for people to customize their stats and make it less work. A lot of times in Draenor, you would get a gem socket slot, you'd have an orange or a red socket, and you'd have to put an orange gem or a red gem. Now we're letting you put all gems that you want into those slots. The slots are all prismatic. We actually have We'll actually go into a little bit. We also removed a bunch of caps and breakpoints. If you guys were familiar with all of our haste caps or haste breakpoints that we had, or hit caps or crit caps, we've removed a bunch of those from the game, so you don't have to have that precision anymore. You can choose the stat that you want to choose. And we wanted to use existing systems. We didn't think that removing reforging and then replacing it with its own system that would do, a similar thing. We already had a bunch of systems in our game that were bonus systems, like cooking, like jewel crafting, like enchanting. So why don't we use those to actually let you customize your stats rather than relying on a different thing? So in Draenor, actually cooking, all the best food in the game is secondary stat. So if you're looking for haste, mastery, crit, multi-strike, any of those will actually be a food that you can make. All the gem sockets are now all pure secondary stats. So if you have a prismatic socket, you can put crit haste gem or crit haste mastery multi-strike, I think. And enchanting too, it's the same way. So here's an example of what those look like. So this is, if you actually like crit, you can have crit food now. You can have, you can put all of your gem sockets as crit because it's a prismatic socket, and all of your enchants can be crit as well. So the third thing we wanted to look at was making loot more useful to your group. We saw a lot of cases in Mists of Pandaria where you would have an item drop and no one in your raid could use it. You may not have a Holy Paladin, you may not have a Resto Druid, and every time those items dropped, it was kind of a feel-bad moment. You may have worked really hard to kill this boss, and then you didn't get the actual reward on the other side. So we wanted to address that, and these are all the changes that we think help that a lot. So main armor slots now have dual stats. So that's all plate, mail, leather. They will automatically switch. If you can wear plate, you can wear this piece of gear, and it has the appropriate primary stat for you. We also separated role items from armor type. And Chris hinted at that, early on in his presentation, or in his presentation about Spirit, that there's actually less slots for Spirit. But from our side, that was really good too, because we don't have to drop specific like tank plate gear anymore. We don't have to drop Spirit leather gear anymore. Spirit comes off of the separate jewelry items, and your main stats on your main armor pieces work just fine. And we also combine dodge and parry into one stat, so you don't have to worry about dodge tanks and parry tanks anymore. Bonus armor works best, and it's your best secondary stat if you're a tank. So you're just looking for that one thing for all tanks. And finally, set bonuses now swap based on spec. So if you have your 4 set for Holy, you have your 4 set for Prot or Ret, whatever you want. And the really cool thing about that too is it kind of allows us to do the token that I was talking about earlier. When you right-click on the token, it doesn't matter what spec you're in, it doesn't worry about your loot spec at all, because there's only one item for all your specs. So this is an example of dual stat. So this is plate legs that dropped, and they have intellect and strength on them. And based off of who you are at the moment, which spec you're in right now, it'll actually change that stat. So if you don't have a paladin in your raid, that's fine. These pants are warrior death knight pants as well, and ret prot. And finally, we wanted to look at the variety of loot in the game. We thought there was a lot of times where you weren't surprised in WoW, and we wanted to reward you for doing a variety of things in the game. We also wanted you to be surprised every once in a while when you got something. So we really increased the sources of loot in Draenor, especially for questing and level up. So before, a lot of your gear would be from quests. It would be all quest reward gear. Now you can get gear from quests. You can make a lot of gear from professions. You can do garrison missions. You can do at endgame, you can do garrison invasions. There's a Pexos crystal vendors. We just wanted to expand where you got loot from. Additionally, quest items can now upgrade to be rare or epic. So you'll see a green item as a quest reward, and as soon as you get that item, it can just randomly roll to be a rare or an epic one, which keeps that constant sense of surprise and excitement to the game. And we looked at the system. A lot of you are familiar with the Warforged or Thunderforged system that we had in Mists of Pandaria. We really wanted to expand upon that in Warlords of Draenor. So we added a bunch of bonus effects to items that when they drop in raids. So even if you have a piece of gear already, that gear could drop and could be better and still be an upgrade for you. So, which gives you that sense of every boss you kill, everything you do in the game can have an upgrade. So the bonus effects specifically are prismatic sockets can go off of, can randomly show up. The item can still be Warforged. We kept that system around. Or you can get a tertiary stat, which are avoidance, speed, leech, and I don't remember the last one. And finally, we have 2 new secondary stats, versatility and multi-strike. So versatility is increased damage and healing, and also decreased damage taken. We really like this stat because it means that there are some raid encounters, if you're taking a lot of raid damage, this is a great stat for you, even if you're DPS, because it may help your healers out. Multi-strike is a stat where when you hit, you have a chance to hit 3 additional times afterwards. So I want to walk you through real quick. So this is actually my beta character right after Shadow Moon Valley. So in Mists of Pandaria, this would probably look like all quest gear. Like every single slot would be a reward that I got through a quest. And you can see that I have, probably about half of my slots right now from quests. I actually had 2 different slots that upgraded. So I got a helmet from a quest reward that randomly rolled, used to be green and now it's epic. And then I also have a pair of rare pants. And then from a Garrison mission that I did, I have a ring. And I had some rare creatures and special events that happen in the zones. If you remember Timeless Isle, there's a lot of those cool creatures that you kill or like events that pop up. Those are all through the questing experience in Draenor, and those can also upgrade. So you can see, like overall, my character has a lot of variety, a lot of different, purple, green, blue, plus a lot of different sources. And finally, this is looking at the bonus stats. So this is the same chest, plate chest, and the second time it actually rolled with Warforged and a prismatic socket attached to it. So you always have that constant sense of there could be something here when I kill this guy. And so all in all, we feel like these changes will make Warlords a much smoother itemization experience, and we hope you guys really have a good time with it. Please send us feedback. Please let us know how it's going. And